Okay, so I just released the worst movies of 2025. Bunch of negativity in that video, but I always like releasing the best movies of the year last, end the year on a little bit of a positive note, because everyone else starts off with best movies here and then ends with worst movies here. I don't know why, but ends the year with a bunch of negativity, and so I decided, long time ago, let's do it in reverse. So, release the worst movies of the year. You can watch that video in, the channel, and now we are doing the best movies I saw in 2025. Let's get into it. Okay, Happy New Year. For those of you probably watching, you're probably watching this in the year 2026. And just for your information, yes, we do have a review for Avatar 3 coming. I just saw it with my wife in 3D, so that will be coming. Although it's coming at a later date, it won't be as relevant as it would have been if I released this before, but I like getting the worst and best films I saw in the current year out before the end of the year. And so you'll see that review coming next. It'll be a little on the late side, but, I've reviewed the first two movies, so it's like, it makes sense to just review the third one, regardless if it's late or not. So that will probably be my next video. You can subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified when that comes out. And then a couple of things before we begin. I usually do honorable mentions first, instead of putting it between the second and first place. And then also, I tend to have 11 movies, and then the honorable mentions will be between 5 and 7 movies. And then I'm not doing any films that I haven't seen this year. So I've heard that movies like Marty Supreme and Song Sung Blue are really good, but I haven't seen them yet. And I've seen enough movies this year that I don't think I'm missing out too much not having them on this list because I haven't seen them yet. I've seen plenty of movies this year, and I think the list is still decent regardless if I haven't seen every single film this year. So if something's missing off this list, it could just be I haven't seen it yet. And then the other thing I'd like to point out is, if there's a movie on this list that you don't like, or there's a movie missing that you're offended that I didn't put on, I personally don't care, because this is my list, and I feel strongly about these movies being the best movies I saw this year. If you don't like any of them, that's fine. I'm not saying don't watch this channel, but, I'm sticking by my guns, and that's that. And then one other thing, there are some movies I have seen this year that I thought they were okay. They didn't really make the list, like case in point, Novocaine with Jack Quaid, or Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I saw them. There's some really good elements to those films, but just they didn't quite make the list. So, I know a lot of lists are going to have Frankenstein on it just because that's the niche thing to do, or that's the cool thing to do. I thought it was an okay film. I didn't think it was an amazing film. This list is of things that kind of impressed me in some way or the other. So, before I get to the honorable mentions, another thing I like to do with the best movies of the year list that I've done for the past couple years, I like to spotlight one television series that I saw throughout the year that I thought was truly special. And the reason why I don't have more television series on this list is it's all about movies, but usually once a year I will see a show that kind of impressed me. It's like, wow, that was a lot better than I thought it'd be. I kind of thought it would have been Alien Earth, but actually it wasn't. I thought that was a so-so show. But the show that really impressed me this year, the one that just kind of made me go, I really want to see a second season, and I just had a really good time the entire time throughout, was Mobland. This was a very impressive show. And it's one of those things where it follows awful people, but I was fascinated to see what happened next. There are some shows like The Sopranos where I feel it's one of the most overrated shows of all time. Everyone on that show was completely awful, unredeemable, and it wasn't like they were fascinating. It was just, I wanted to kill every single character on that show because, one, they were either poorly written, or two, they were just so terrible that there was no redeeming value, and they weren't even interesting to follow. With the show Mobland, most, if not 99% of all the characters on the show are awful, irredeemable people, but I was fascinated to see what happened next. This is more along the lines of something like Breaking Bad, another show where most of the characters are unredeemable, say a few, but they're either so well written or they're so fascinating that I want to see what happens next. And I definitely had that with shows like Breaking Bad, and I definitely had that with Mobland. I mean, and everyone does a fantastic job on this show. Pierce Brosnan, Helen Mirren, and the guy that played like their grandson. Oh my gosh, these characters are characters that need to die, but not just die horrific deaths. These are truly horrendous, awful, vile, evil characters. But they're all done so incredibly well in terms of acting. And the main character, played by Tom Hardy, he's this fixer for this mob family in England. But he's actually like one of the few characters on the show where it's like, he's actually not as big of a piece of shit as you think. And he has this like very odd moral code, even though he's working for evil people. He has this strange moral code of just loyalty above everything else, but he's also seeing that loyalty is coming at a cost because he has to do things for these people that he would never have done if he had any say in it, but he doesn't. He's not the head of this family. And just the overall story structure of the show was really impressive. I was hooked, and even though this show did that obnoxious releasing an episode a week, which kills most shows for me, just release the whole damn thing, I was impressed. I was looking forward to the following week, and this is a show that they're making a second season, and I want to see if they can keep that thunder for the second season. So, with that being said, let's move on to the honorable mentions. And again, I'd like to point out there's not going to be any video of any of these movies on this video because YouTube and these movie corporations are really bad about copyright restrictions, and even though I'm using just official trailers that they released, I'll still get copyright flagged, and especially it's bad on best movies of the year. Funny enough, I will get not as many flags on worst movies of the year. I guess the studio just gave up on those films, but the best movies of the year, they fight tooth and nail, so you won't see any B-roll of the movies on this list. But starting off with the honorable mentions, the first one is a movie that would have been on the main 11 list if it wasn't for a technicality. And that technicality is technically it released in 2024, but it was like shown at like one event close to the end of the year, and then it released nationwide in like January 5th or something like that. And I hate it when movies do that. They only do that so that they can get award consideration for the Oscars or other award events. It's like, honestly, if you don't release by December 25th, I consider you a film of the following year, and I think it's so stupid when they do that. This was one of the movies that did that, and that movie is September 5th. The general premise of this is, what if you saw the September 5th terrorist attack that happened at the Olympics back in the 70s, but it's from the perspective of the ABC newsroom. And on paper, that doesn't sound that interesting. But when I saw this movie, it had me hooked once it kicked off. And it was very well paced. Everyone did a fantastic job acting. And this is a really good bare-knuckle thriller. And it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. The only problem, technically it released in 2024, and so because of that, I'm giving it an honorable mention. The next honorable mention that I saw was a movie that I went into planning on hate watching it because I had no faith in it. I did not like who was making it because they made one of the worst pieces of cinema I had ever had to suffer through. The horror show WandaVision. The guy who made that made this movie, and when I heard he was making this film, I wiped my hands like, I'm gonna head out. But I still watched it, planning on hating it, and I planned on having this on the worst movies of the year list. And that movie was Fantastic Four: First Steps. To my surprise, it wasn't that bad of a film. I actually had a lot of fun with it. Is it perfect? Of course it's not perfect. It made a couple of mistakes. I felt they should have done a few things differently. But overall, I thought it was a lot better than it had any right to be, especially with who was attached to it. So, I was pleasantly surprised by that. The next honorable mention is a film that I think kind of shadow dropped around my birthday this year, and that was an animated anthology called Predator: Killer of Killers. I'm a huge Terminator, Alien, and Predator fan, and I'm going to show up for anything coming out of those two franchises. And I watched this, and while I had some issues with it, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed 2 of the 3 main stories, and I thought it did some really inventive things, especially with the World War II segment. Doing a Predator story in World War II, there was a lot of things you could have done with that, but at the same time, they decided to do something wildly different in terms of aerial combat, and I thought it was an interesting decision to make, and I actually really enjoyed that segment. Are they going to actually do more with these characters? Because they kind of leave it a little bit on a cliffhanger. I have no idea. But it is a fun, quick watch if you're have nothing to do and you like this franchise. The next honorable mention that I saw this year was a movie that, on the surface, feels like a simple, stupid sci-fi thriller, but it actually had a little bit more going with it, and that was Companion. I feel if you can watch this without watching any of the trailers and you have no idea what this movie's about, you should, because the trailers kind of give away a big twist that happens close to the beginning of the movie, and I thought this was actually a really good thriller. It does some really cool things with AI, robots, and whatnot, and overall, I thought it was a really good thriller. Definitely worth watching, especially if you can go into it as fresh as humanly possible. The next honorable mention is a movie that's in a series that I've always been a little bit disappointed in, and that was Wake Up Dead Men, a Knives Out mystery. The first Knives Out I felt was okay, but I felt the director was trying to make more of a political statement with that one than a interesting murder mystery. And then with the sequel, that was an honorable mention on one of my previous years, but the ending is so terrible on the sequel that watching it again this year before this one, I kind of realized, yeah, there's some good aspects to the sequel, but again, way too much. Let's do a movie making a political message, and then we'll try having an interesting murder mystery with that. But with this third one, I felt that Rian Johnson kind of got back to what made me kind of like him before Star Wars, and that was his earlier films of like Brick and Looper. And with this movie, I felt it was a good murder mystery. There's some like political messaging in this one, but not as much as the previous two. And one of the things that kind of sold me on this movie is, without getting too many spoilers, there is a scene in this movie where a priest is talking with an atheist, and the atheist is talking about why he hates the religion that the priest is a part of. And as the atheist is talking, the light in the room kind of dies down. It gets dimmer and dimmer and darker. And then when he's done with his rant on how terrible this priest's religion is, the priest gives his answer and the light in the room starts coming back up. and getting brighter and brighter. And when I saw that scene, I was just thinking, it was very subtle, it was easy to miss, but man, that was a really well crafted scene. And so that scene alone really kind of made me give this movie more of a chance. And it's a fun murder mystery, I gotta be honest. The priest that's kind of the main character, I'd say he's more of a main character than Daniel Craig's detective in this one. Whereas the previous two films, Daniel Craig's kind of the main character in those. He really did a good job in this film. I really believe that this guy was just a young priest that wanted to do the best job he could and wanted to help people be better versions of themselves. And overall, I thought this was a really well-crafted murder mystery, and I had a lot of fun with it. The next honorable mention, there's two left, is a movie that I feel the trailer kind of wears everything you're going to know about this movie on its sleeve, and I think the trailer was kind of what hurt this movie's box office. And that was the thriller Caught Stealing. It's a Darren Aronofsky film, and the trailer honestly didn't really sell me. The only reason why I watched this was like, okay, I got a chance to watch it tonight, sure. And honestly, it's a really decent crime thriller. I thought Austin Butler did a really good job. There's a pretty solid surprise partway through the movie, and it felt like a Guy Ritchie crime drama almost. It wasn't Guy Ritchie, it was Darren Aronofsky, but it definitely had colorful British, or not even British, there's one British guy. It had those colorful criminal-like characters that you would see in a Guy Ritchie mob drama. And so I really enjoyed Caught Stealing. I thought it was a pretty solid crime thriller. And then the last honorable mention is one that was on the 11 list for the longest time. It just got pushed out of the top 11 spot, and that was Sinners. The acting in this film, pretty solid. The cinematography is also really good, but like one criticism I had, and this isn't why I got knocked off, was the director kept switching between IMAX framing and then standard film framing to the point that it got really distracting. Like you'd see one scene of a character talking to another one, you see a quick flash of outside in IMAX, not 2 seconds long, and then it goes back to two other characters talking, and it's back in the standard, regular theater format. And it's like, honestly, the only time this was kind of cool was when this one fight kind of started and you saw the screen start going wider and wider and entered into IMAX. It's like, okay, that was cool. The rest of the IMAX framing sucked throughout the film, but that was cool. But ultimately, the reason why this didn't make the top 11, I felt too little was spent on the siege that happens at the end of the film. It was like 70% of this movie was set up introducing you to these two brothers. They were planning to open like a honky-tonk bar, I think that's what you'd call it. Anyway, a bar out in the middle of the woods, and like the setup was good, but then when the siege happens, it doesn't last that long, and I would have liked to have seen more of a 50-50 split between them setting up the scenario and then the last half of the movie be this siege. And the siege is great, but it's not long enough. It's like, yeah, I was digging this movie, but it's like, honestly, Ryan Coogler, if you have a potential director's cut planned, please release more of the siege, because the concept's great. I felt Sinners was a better attempt at let's be honest, Dusk Till Dawn than Dusk Till Dawn did, because Dusk Till Dawn gets a little ridiculous during the siege, but Sinners felt like a more dramatic attempt at doing a similar story to Dusk Till Dawn. And so definitely worth watching, definitely a pretty decently made film. And even I love the lore of the vampires in this one. They kind of do some different things with the vampires I haven't seen in other vampire films. So Ryan Coogler said he wasn't interested in doing a sequel, but this made a shit ton of money. He'll probably do a sequel. I'd like to see more of that vampire lore build upon in any potential future installment of this film. And now we are on to the 11 best movies I saw this year. And at number 11 is this indie film that kind of just came and went without any fanfare, and that was Tornado, or Tornado. Tornado. I don't know how to properly call the movie, the title, but the trailer kind of had me go, okay, this might be interesting. And when I saw the film, I was actually kind of surprised by the setting. It's actually set in the late 1700s in a rural English countryside. And honestly, I can't think of another movie that takes place during this time frame that I've seen set in the same time era, post-Revolutionary War, but in England. Usually, anything post-Revolutionary War you kind of see happening. It's like America, France, but now maybe there's like a Pride and Prejudice story that was made about, like, you know, English aristocrats that are set at this time. I haven't really seen a lot of those films, but I was interested by the setting. I was a little surprised by it, and the movie kind of follows this traveling, I guess, carnival caravan, and this father and daughter group that is Japanese, and they do like these kind of marionette plays for people in the English countryside. And there's a little bit of, I don't know what you call it, like revenge quest thriller with this. And one of the things I really liked, apart from the acting, because the acting's really solid in this film, and Tim Roth plays like the main bad guy in this movie. He usually does a good job playing a bad guy. One of the things I loved was kind of the character arc of the main character. I think she's called Tornado. She might have had a different name in this. She makes a lot of mistakes. She's part of the reason why certain events happen in this film. She screws up. She gets other people killed in this movie. But seeing her character arc throughout this film kind of gripped me, because you could see her kind of realize the errors she made, and it wasn't like, doesn't matter, I was right all along. No, there's a few moments in this movie where it's like, I made a huge mistake, and I have to live with this for the rest of my life. And surprisingly enough, the trailer insinuates this is going to be like a non-stop action revenge thriller, and surprisingly, it's a very slow burn through most of the movie. It's not until you get to like the final act that you see a lot of the stuff from the trailer. So because of that, I would say go into this fresh without watching the trailer. And the final few minutes are quite like violent and entertaining. But for the most part, this movie's more of a slow burn. And I thought it was very well done. I thought everyone did a good job. And I kind of liked how the movie ended, and how you have this character, they made some mistakes, they have to live with it, and now they have to go and figure out how they're going to live the rest of their life. So definitely worth checking out if you want to see an obscure indie film. I don't know if it's an indie film, but it's not a huge major summer blockbuster. At number 10 is a movie that, honestly, it's about a genre I never really cared about, I never had a lot of interest in, but it was a movie that was very well done, and that was F1. The director, Joseph Kosinski, I can't think of one movie he's done I did not enjoy. He did Tron Legacy, he did Oblivion, he did Top Gun Maverick, and he did F1. And I think his next movie might be a remake of Miami Vice, and I'm all here for it. He's a very solid director. I love the way he does movies. I love his choice for cinematography, his choice for editing. He does really great stuff with camera work and visual effects. And this was no different. F1 was a very entertaining movie. I liked the story arc of not just Brad Pitt, but also the young, brash driver that he has to work with on the course. I liked his story arc. I liked a lot of stuff about this film. And also, one of the few movies in a long time where the rich guy who owns the team is not an irredeemable asshole. And it was kind of surprising. It's like, okay, any man now, they're going to make Javier Bardem a piece of shit. Any man now. Any man now. Any man now. No. No. Interesting. Now, they do have a rich asshole that's a bad guy in this, but it's not Javier Bardem's character. But still, it was just kind of refreshing to see a rich guy that wasn't an asshole in a movie. But that's not the reason why this is on the list. The camera work on the Formula 1 cars is outstanding. The races are very well fast-paced. Brad Pitt's character story arc is pretty awesome. I really enjoyed this movie. It's a great fun watch over the weekend, and definitely worth checking out. At number 9 is a movie that has some issues. I'll give it that. It's one of the few movies on this list I did review this year, but I am kind of a sucker for this series, and I kind of like the execution. That was Ballerina. I'm not going to call it the full title because I think it's ridiculous, but I just call it Ballerina. And I thought this was a pretty solid chapter of the John Wick universe. I liked the story. I thought that she did a pretty good job. I love the first fight she was in. I liked how they tried to explain how a woman has to fight in this world. And I was kind of intrigued by the revenge plot that she had, although we've seen this revenge plot several times before. I like that most of the fights, she has to work her ass off to take out a guy bigger than her. It's not like Disney where she just slaps a guy in full armor and he falls over and doesn't get back up. Okay, Disney has a really bad habit of doing that. No, this is a movie where, like, she goes up against two guys and it's like 10 minutes for her to take them out. She's like panting after she takes them out. I thought they had really good set pieces in this. I thought it was a visually stunning movie, and I like this world of the Continental where, you know, you have basically everyone in the world's a assassin, basically. But yeah, it's a fun action movie, definitely good popcorn flick, and I think you're going to enjoy it. At number 8 is a movie that's in a franchise I really love, and another movie I reviewed. It does have issues, but it's a really fun movie, and that's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Yeah, I would say that it's kind of a messy finale, but my gosh, are the action scenes and the set pieces spectacular. I mean, definitely they went all out with this movie with some of the action scenes, set pieces, the biplane sequence, the submarine sequence. If you want to have a thrilling, fun time with an action film, watch this movie. Is it perfect? Of course not. It has a lot of issues with the storytelling and with, like, timing and whatnot, but you're going to have a fun time regardless with this movie. I mean, short, sweet, I have fun with this, not perfect, but pretty awesome. At number 7 is a movie that unfortunately was a box office bomb this year, but I was a little intrigued by the director and by the cast, but the trailers kind of didn't do it justice because this isn't really an action film, and when you're doing a trailer for a movie that's not an action film, it's kind of hard to get someone's attention with the trailer. But that movie is Black Bag. This is mostly a movie that's just having people talking, but it's a very captivating movie. The general premise is there's this MI5 agent, I believe it's MI5. Yeah, I believe it's MI5. This MI5 agent, he gets a tip from one of his informers that someone inside MI5 has turned, and it's possibly someone in his inner circle. So he's spending the entire movie trying to figure out who among his closest friends and even wife could be this mole/traitor. And the thing that I loved about this movie is it did a great job starting to give you breadcrumbs leading to one suspect, and just when you think, yeah, it's that person, you get a whole bunch of new breadcrumbs leading to another suspect. And just when you think it's going to be that person, you get a whole bunch of new breadcrumbs leading to another suspect. And so this movie did a really good job keeping me on the edge of my seat, and it's mostly just people talking. There's very little action in this movie whatsoever. But the cast is fantastic, everyone does a great job, and quite honestly, this is one of those few, like, espionage movies. You don't see car chases, you don't see huge explosions, and you just have a really tight thriller. And I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen this movie yet, you should check it out because it's a really good mystery. At number 6 is kind of a guilty pleasure, but man, did the filmmaking and the crew had a lot of heart going into this. And this is a movie that I felt was superior to the big budget equivalent to this movie, and that was Primitive War. The big budget equivalent to this movie was Jurassic World Rebirth. And that movie, I just felt, played it safe, paint by numbers, did nothing interesting, just reused a lot of previous scenes we've already seen before. But with Primitive War, they had a very simple concept. What if we had a Vietnam movie with dinosaurs? And this GI unit finds dinosaurs in Vietnam. Simple premise, and I loved it. They did a surprisingly good job on the visual effects, despite having... I think they had like a 16th the budget that Jurassic World had. And yet this movie looked better, had more heart and character than that movie, and did more interesting things. And some of the deaths are really creative, really surprising. It gets a little technical towards the end with how the dinosaurs are coming to be, but man, this was a fun movie. I want to see more in this series. I kind of like how they left it a little open at the end for more movies in a supposed series with this, but it doesn't have a cliffhanger, don't worry. And I mean, it's I don't want to say it's a dumb fun movie, but man, is this a cheesy fun movie. It's a great guilty pleasure, and I loved every moment of it. At number 5 is a movie that I wasn't expecting anything out of, but it was a biopic that I had heard about, and it's like, oh yeah, I heard about this, don't know the story, they're doing a biopic of it, and that was Last Breath. I went to this movie not knowing what the real event was about, and holy crap, was this a solid film. This was a great thriller based on a true event that happened back in, I think, 2014. The same guy that made the documentary on this event made this movie, and apparently, funny enough, the documentary and this movie are like the same runtime. But yeah, you get a look at a very dangerous job that exists underwater, like telecommunications repair. Like, you think, why would I want to watch a movie about that? But my gosh, this was a very solid movie. And like, just looking at this, like, wait a minute, this actually happened? And like, the resolution to this film is just like, there's no way this happened. And I mean, this was a solid movie. The cast was great, the pacing was excellent, a tiny bit slow at the beginning, but once they get in the water, it's like non-stop great pacing. And this, unfortunately, this was a box office bomb as well, but my gosh, this was a really, really great biopic, and I would absolutely recommend that you guys check this movie out. At number 4 is a movie I also reviewed this year, and one of the best aspects of this movie was the fact that the trailers were so effectively done. They did not spoil too much with the trailers for this movie, and that was Weapons. I had heard about this movie in development, and then when I saw the first teaser trailer, it had me hooked. I'm like, what the hell is this movie about? And then I saw the main trailer, and I'm just like, I want to go see this movie. Because the trailers are really good. The trailers do a good job of not spoiling the movie at all. Something very few movies don't do anymore. Most movies, they spoil the whole movie in the trailer. It sucks. I don't know why Hollywood keeps hiring these same people to make trailers. But whoever did the trailers for Weapons did a fantastic job because they don't spoil too much of the movie. And the premise of the movie is one night, every kid in this one classroom gets up at the same exact time, walks down to the front door of their home, and runs out into the dark of night, never to be seen of again. And the movie picks up like a month after that happens. And I would say, while the trailers make this out to be a horror movie, this isn't really a horror movie. It's more of a thriller with some horror elements. Everyone does a fantastic job. Julie Garner did a really good job, and I was starting to think that she was a nothing actress because I saw her in Wolfman. I thought, okay, she did a fine job. I saw her in Fantastic Four, First Steps. I thought, okay, she did an okay job. I think I'm just getting the same sense that she's just a one-trick pony. But then she did Weapons, and like, oh, this lady can act. She did a really good job in this movie. Josh Brolin did a good job. Amy Madigan, I believe is her name. Ed Harris's wife. Is it Ed Harris? Yeah. Ed Harris's wife. She did probably one of the best performances I've ever seen her do in her career. And this is the badass chick from Streets of Fire, which not many people have seen, and she was in Field of Dreams. But I thought she did an insanely good job in this movie. And fair warning though, if you haven't seen this movie yet and you go to watch this movie, there is a horrifically, very extremely graphic scene in this movie. Be warned, okay? Like, I feel I can't warn you enough how graphic this scene is. It's like bone tomahawk graphic almost. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna go watch this. It's like, oh, thriller? Okay, I'll watch this with my parents. You might want to check that, because there's a very... Just let them know in advance that you've been told there's a very graphic scene in this movie. So definitely looking forward to seeing what else this director's going to do. Apparently he's working on a Resident Evil movie, so I'd like to see how he handles that. Be kind of interesting. At number 3, I'll admit, probably not as good as I'm hyping it up to be, but I'm a sucker. I already talked about this earlier. I love everything in these three franchises, and I'll always go see them. And at number 3 is Predator Badlands. When I first heard about the production for Predator Badlands, it was a concept that I had always personally wanted to do if I ever got the chance to do it. A movie focused solely from the perspective of the Predator. And when I heard they were actually doing that, it's like, I've always wanted to see this since I was like a teenager. And so finally getting to see that. Is it a perfect movie? Probably not. But my gosh, it was very satisfying finally seeing this story finally come out on the big screen. And I had a lot of fun with this movie. I got to see it in 3D. There's some really great moments in 3D. Definitely tonally different than any previous Predator film beforehand. This doesn't exactly feel like a Predator film most of the time, but I still thought it was a really fantastic, fun action thrill ride, and I'm looking forward to buying this on 4K and adding it to my Predator collection. And so I've heard a lot of diehard fans say it's not a Predator movie, it betrays everything that the Predator franchise is, and it shouldn't even be called a Predator movie. I mean, some arguments I've heard, it's like, maybe, but overall, I thought it was a really great movie, and I'm also really glad that they had the popcorn buckets for it. So I just need a popcorn bucket for Terminator now, and then my tap collection of popcorn buckets will be complete. Now, at number 2, and this was a movie that was bouncing back and forth between the number 1 spot and the number 2 spot quite a bit. I ultimately decided to put this at number 2. It's a movie from a director that I do not like, and that's Alex Garland. I feel that he's overrated. I feel that he's very narcissistic. I feel he's quite the asshole. I feel he's very selfish, and I just don't like most of the stuff he does. That being said, Alex Garland did an amazing job making Warfare. Now, I understand some people might go, well, you know, he co-directed it with one of the guys that was on the ground during this incident. True. But that guy was a director, okay? Definitely, Alex Garland carried a huge bulk of the directing duties with this movie. And I'm willing to admit, when someone I don't like did an excellent job. And Alex Garland did an amazing job on this movie. Hell, a movie he wrote was on the worst movies of the year I saw. 28 Years Later. I did not like that movie. But Warfare was a very solid, excellent movie. It's about this event of this Navy SEAL team getting pinned down in Iraq back in I think it was 2007, 2006, and just it's a little slow at the beginning, but once it kicks off, and it is non-stop until the end. And I thought this was a very fantastic military dramatic thriller. And one of my favorite aspects of this movie is the fact that they show you little details that you normally never see in a military war movie, but when you think about it, it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, one thing that always bugs me in movies, okay? 99.99% of movies make this mistake. Whenever there's someone who's a sniper, they always have the barrel of the gun hanging outside a window for the entire world to see. And in this movie, you see a sniper in the back of the room, away from the opening, with his rifle set up so that no one can see the barrel hanging out. And it's like, when I saw that at the beginning of the movie, I was just like, oh, did they actually get a competent, like, technical advisor for this movie? And then, like, other little things, like, before they left the building, it's like, okay, where's all the gear? You had bolt cutters, find them. You had duct tape, find it. And it's like, that makes perfect sense, because you don't want to leave anything for the enemy. And you never see that in other military dramas. And in this, it's like, yo, you gotta gather up all the gear before you leave, otherwise the enemy can use this stuff against you. And so I thought this was an exceptionally well done movie. I had like let out a sigh of relief when the movie was over, because it is like non-stop until once it kicks off. It's non-stop until the end. And so if you want to see a really solid war drama, Warfare is an excellent film. And then number one is a movie that I've heard some people criticize, but I just had too much fun with this movie. I had way too much with this movie from beginning to the end. I felt the trailers were done perfectly. They don't show too much. There was like one trailer and that was it. And that was The Gorge. I loved this movie. And I was thinking after I was done watching it, this isn't going to be my favorite movie of the year. There's an entire year's worth of movies coming out. This came out early in 2025. And as I was watching this, as I was going through the year, it's like, still not as good as The Gorge. Still not as good as The Gorge. Still not as good as The Gorge. And after watching the last couple of movies this year, it's like, wow, that was like the best movie I saw this year. And like the general premise is this former sniper gets a job offer from a secret like corporation, and he gets blindfolded and parachuted out in the middle of nowhere, and he gets meet by this guy who says, follow me, I'm going to tell you what you're going to be doing. You're going to be protecting this gorge. And there's another sniper across the way from you, and your guy's job is to make sure that nothing comes out of this gorge. And it's like, what a great concept. And I liked the two leads in this. I thought they both did a really good job. I loved the creature designs in this movie, and I love that they didn't spoil it in the trailer. If you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. It was a fun thrill ride from beginning to end. It has a pretty tight-knit final, closing. I mean, sure, could they do a sequel to this? Yeah, but the way the movie ends, it's like, yeah, you don't need to do a sequel to this. I loved this movie. If it ever gets a physical release, I'm buying it, because it's just one of those action horror movies that's just solid all the way through. So anyway, those have been my 11 favorite movies, or the 11 best movies I've seen all year. What do you guys think? What are some of your favorite movies you guys saw this year? Say off in the comments down below. My name's Christopher Conn with 11 Hour Views, and that will be all for today.